a lot of love and credit being doled out to Bill Belichick for the game plan last night in Buffalo against the Buffalo Bills and the performance that the Patriots put on. Mac Jones, 3 pass attempts. They ran the ball, and it was just a figure it out, conditions be damned, and try and get a win on the road. The Patriots do that. They're the 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, he was asked about the Bill Belichick game plan and how things went down. Here was the Bills coach last night afterwards.
Let's not give more credit than we need to give credit to Bill Belichick in this one. It was, whether it's Bill or anybody else, they beat us, right? But you sit here and you tell me when we start with the average starting field position of the 40-yard line and he starts with the 23-yard line, and I'm rounding up in both cases, and we were 1 for 4 in the red zone and they were 0 for 1 in the red zone, you give me that ahead of time, so I like my chances.
He's bitter, man.
But I agree with him. He has to do better.
Bitter.
Well, be bitter that you didn't do better.
Micah Hyde, Justin Poyer, Jordan Poyer, they all sound very, very bitter. But don't you have to admit,
isn't that what you want? Isn't that what we were saying going out of the show talking about the game? That you have 2 young quarterbacks. One just got his contract. One is on his rookie contract. Both teams are doing well at this point. They have their issues that they have to address on the defensive side of the ball in Buffalo. But for what it's worth, it's shaping up to be what can be considered a rivalry again, or a rivalry renewed. So I like the fact that he was irritated and upset.
I do too. It's great. It's entertaining. It does sound like, man, we thought we got rid of these guys.
Stop talking about Bill Belichick already.
Like we thought we got rid of him when Brady went to Tampa.
Well, then you should have won.
And here it happens again.
Then you should have won.
That sounds like a bitter guy.
It sounds like there's a lot of frustration. I just wonder, did Buffalo peak?
Ooh.
As much as we want to make this a rivalry, did they peak last year?
Ooh, they're not as good this year.
No.
Well, and I'll ask you this: Is New England going to get worse from here? I feel like if anything, they'll only get better, right?
Yeah. They look like they have finally figured out what the coaches want them to do, and they are succinct in what it is their approaches are, and that's why they're successful. I mean, it doesn't look like they're hitting their peak. It looks like they're ascending, and I think we've been saying this all year. And it's funny because statistically speaking, looking at the Buffalo Bills, they don't look as though they're a team that's, going backwards. They look like they're still a dominant team statistically, rankings-wise. But they're not as good as they were last year. Allen is not as good as he was last year. So I don't know.
And
I think the
paid.
difference is you have to look at the trend. Early this season, I think they were 4-1, 5-2 at other points. They were dominant. They looked to be that team we saw last year. And then they hit this rut where offensively you realized, all right, they can't really run the football. Maybe they have to with Josh Allen. They just don't want to because they just paid the guy. Their defense isn't playing as well as it used to. And then on the other side, New England, look at the past, 6 weeks? They haven't given up over 13 points. They haven't given up over 13 points, last 5 games. I mean, it's a completely different team. They kind of at 500, they've kicked it into gear now, won 5 straight. And offensively, they're putting up more points. They've figured it out, man. And now they go into the bye week, and they only get more momentum as the season goes on.
I was just going to say that. They have a bye week this week, New England, and this is after they rattle off this win streak. They're sitting in first place. I mean, this feels like the perfect time. And you would figure a team, maybe they'd be a little bit ragged at this point because the bye week came so late, and they've only played better. Buffalo just feels like they're going to – they're the 7th seed in the AFC playoffs right now. And if Buffalo misses the playoffs, and there's a real chance possibly Buffalo could miss the playoffs. Their schedule's pretty manageable. But if they were to miss the playoffs, if things just got even worse from here and they had a meltdown, they're the most disappointing team in the NFL,
That's a tremendous
right?
disappointment. That's tremendous.
Gotta be.
Yeah, because, I mean, a lot of people could look at or did look at Buffalo as a Super Bowl contender.
Yes, they were a top 4 favorite to get to the Super Bowl.
Didn't they beat Kansas City early on in the year this year?
Yeah.
I mean, they showed at times the glimpses of what their brilliance could be, but as the season has worn on, they have just been a team that, like, they'll lose games they're not supposed to lose. They'll win some games they're supposed to win. And they're showing you that they're largely, in part, not a consistent football team, and that's a dangerous team to be. When we continue to say in November, we're now in December, if you don't start showing that your trend is going up by mid-November into December, you're probably not. It's hard to get a late run to get hot. It's hard. So if you're not trending up by now, chances are you're not going to trend up in an impactful way for the rest of the year. So they could be in a very, very dangerous position right now.
Now, hold on now. Wasn't this where kind of the Tampa Bay Bucks were last year? I think their bye was a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Like week 12 maybe?
I think it was week 13 because week 14, because of the extra week, is the latest there's been a bye week in NFL history.
Oh, that's right, because we got 17 games this year.
And I think Tampa had a bye last year, the same week as Carolina. Just randomly, they were the two that had the final bye week. And then, they rattled off a bunch of wins in a row and figured it out. I just... Man, if I'm Buffalo, something
one
seems
week
off.
sooner.
And they did win last week. They did win. I mean, they got throttled by the Colts the week before. I mean, and they throttled the Jets the week before. I mean, it's not like they're on this tremendous skid.
They're going to win 10 games.
So it's not, I'm not putting dirt on them. I'm just saying, if they're going to be that team, then they got to start showing a little bit more consistency than what they're doing right now. It can't be, patty cake with it, right? It's like win this week, lose that week. Win this week, lose that week. That's what they're doing.
They're 3-4 since they beat Kansas City. And if you were to, if those teams played again right now, give me Kansas City all day, all day. Like,
and that's damning. That's damning to say. If I'm the Bills. And that's where we're at, where that's the first thing that comes to mind, because I don't know that anybody would say, no, give me the Bills. Today, I don't know that anybody says that.
Well, okay, Brian Daboll, he was. This is kind of a rough year for him, right? I mean, he's been talked about as going to be the next hot commodity offensive coordinator for the Bills, be a head coach. I mean, you pointed this out when we were talking about this before the show in your notes, Brady, that they can't run the ball. And is it that they can't run the ball, or they just refuse to run the ball, and Daboll's trying to make a statement by going up and down the field?
So the odd thing is like statistically, and LaVar just said this, they don't look that bad. Like if he walks into an interview right now, given that they're a top 5 scoring offense, a top 10 offense in regards to yards, even if you look at their yards per attempt, they're top 10 rushing. But a lot of that's kind of fluff when you think about how they go about generating some of that. Like they were doing it versus some bad football teams earlier in this season. Like their MO has been get up on teams, and then in the second half, that's where you start to run the football and then start to kind of add on or pad those stats a little bit. It's almost the opposite of a quarterback who's on a bad team and he's constantly playing from behind and he's getting a lot of those garbage time yards and production so his stats look better. It's like the exact opposite with a good football team. So no one's going to sit there and if he walks into a room right now with the way the stats look, no one's going to sit there and question it. But if you're actually looking at their ability to run the football when they need to, it's a problem, man. I mean, it's a problem. It displayed itself back versus Jacksonville when they lost that game 9-6. It displayed itself. Obviously, I mean, the Colts game got out of hand early, and the defense struggled there. But there's been instances where you watch and you're like, man, they just don't have any balance. And at times early in games, there's just no willingness to run the football. So I don't know if that's a byproduct of the offensive line or, hey, they just paid Josh Allen. Let's kind of let him cook, let him do his thing. But whatever the case may be, they've got, 5 games left at this point?
Yeah.
Where they've got to be able to figure it out. And they've got to be able to kind of build that momentum going into the postseason, because they will be a postseason team. They're going to beat Carolina, they'll beat Atlanta, and they'll beat New York, all of which they play at home in their house. And all those 3 teams have no business hanging with them, given their current situation too. And then they got to play Tampa and New England, which should be great indications of how legit they really are with some of the improvements they're trying to make.